Mrs. Kate at the Library Whispers, and today we're going to continue reading this lovely library book, Illustrated Legends of Scotland's Kings and Queens. So let's check to see where we are up to. And here we are. Mary, Queen of Scots. Okay. Born 1542, died 1587, and reigned 1542 to 1567. Before the legend. On the 8th of December 1542, King James V of Scotland, who was the son of King James IV, and his French wife Mary of Guise, had a baby girl. They named her Mary, like her mother. Sadly, King James V did not live for long after the birth of his beautiful red-haired child. Within a year, baby Mary Stuart was crowned Queen of Scotland. In those days, it was the custom for children of noble and royal families to be promised in marriage at an early age. The King of England, Henry VIII, suggested that Mary should be betrothed to his young son. King Henry was Mary's great-uncle, as his sister had married King James IV of Scotland. If the two cousins wed, and the two kingdoms united, it might stop the constant battles and invasions along the border. Both countries could prosper. At first, this seemed like a good plan. However, King Henry VIII then said that Mary must be sent to England. She would be brought up in his court, and he would govern Scotland until his son and Mary were old enough to rule by themselves. Mary's mother and the Scottish lords were very alarmed by this. They decided that Mary would not marry King Henry's son. King Henry was furious. Over the next few years, ruthless English armies were sent north to find and capture the little Scottish queen. Terrorising and murdering the people, they left a trail of destruction, burning crops, villages and towns, including Edinburgh with Holyrood House and the Abbey. These attacks became known as the Rough Wooing. Mary was cleverly hidden in various places, and King Henry could not catch her. Eventually, a massive English invasion force was sent by land and sea to make one final attempt. The Scots raised a huge army to defend their little queen. In September 1547, a terrible battle was fought east of Edinburgh, around a gorge called Pinkie Cleugh. Sheltering in the mighty fortress of Stirling Castle, Mary and her mother anxiously awaited news of the outcome that would decide their fate. Mary, Queen of Scots, and the Four Marys. Disaster. In the great hall of Stirling Castle, Lord John Erskine stood in front of Mary of Guise. His head was bowed in sorrow. It breaks my heart to tell you how badly we are defeated. Thousands of Scots lie dead at Pinkie Cleugh, many of your loyal lords among them. And now the traitor lords who accepted bribes from Henry VIII to take up his cause will come here with English soldiers to seize my daughter. Mary of Guise got to her feet. Never, never will I betray our country by permitting England to On my lands there is a loch with a tiny island, and on the island is a monk's priory. It is less than 20 miles from here to Inchmahome. We could leave secretly tonight. Bundled up on her mother's lap, 4-year-old Queen Mary thought it was thrilling to gallop under the stars and row across a loch. The brother abbot welcomed them to the community and gave them the best furnished guest rooms of Inchmahome Priory, where his royal visitors quickly adapted to the rhythm of monastic life. Mary and her mother would stroll along the arched cloisters, watching the monks at work. Brother Cook, in the kitchen, let Mary stir the soup pot and knead the bread dough. Brother Carpenter showed Mary how to crank the handle of the wood-turning lathe while he fashioned her a wooden spinning top. But Mary's favourite place to be was outdoors, for she loved the natural world. With Brother Gardner, she gathered the orchard harvest of plums, red ripe apples and golden pears. She collected an apron full of sweet chestnuts and begged to be allowed to plant one. It will be years before your chestnut tree flowers, her mother said. When I am grown up, I'll come back and visit it, Mary replied. She buried her chestnut and then, studying the mound of earth where it lay, said, I will plant another chestnut for you, Mamma, and also one for Papa. Then my trees won't be lonely. I am sorry you are frequently by yourself, said Mary of Guise. My hours are taken up with writing important letters to France on your behalf. I know they stories are said to have played as children. There are also 3 sweet chestnut trees, and they are old enough to fit the stories that say they were planted by Mary Queen of Scots. Dumbarton Castle still stands overlooking the Firth of Clyde, where Mary first saw the grand galley of the King of France that took her to childhood safety. Queen Mary had a close relationship with her mother, which was unusual for royal children at that time. They exchanged loving letters throughout young Mary's years in France. Originals and copies of Mary's letters still exist. Some are held in the National Library of Scotland. Union of the Crowns of Scotland and England, 1603. After King Henry VIII of England died, his 3 children in turn ruled England, the last one being Queen Elizabeth I. But none of them left any children to inherit the English crown. When Elizabeth I died, the closest royal descendant was James Stuart, son of Mary Queen of Scots. He had been crowned King James VI of Scotland in 1567. The union of the Scottish and English crowns took place in 1603, when James was crowned in London to reign as King James I of Great Britain and Ireland. After the coronation in London, James VI and I lived and had his court in London and only once returned to Scotland. All the kings and queens of Scotland since then have also been kings and queens of England, Wales and Ireland, or Northern Ireland. The son of King James VI and I became King Charles I. He wanted to rule with absolute authority and would not agree to having a parliament of the people to represent views other than his own. In 1649, civil war broke out. Charles was killed, and for the next 10 years there was no king or queen. This time is known as the interregnum. In 1660, the monarchy was restored to King Charles's sons, and after that continued via their female line of descent. Scotland's queens and kings once had great power, but after centuries of struggle, people gained a say over their own lives. The system of government became a constitutional monarchy, where laws are made by members of a parliament elected by the people. The king or queen signs these laws as head of state and is seen as a symbol for the country. The Scottish and English parliaments united in 1707, which created the United Kingdom of Great Britain. For many years, Scotland received little attention from the London-based royal family. It wasn't until the 19th century that Scotland gained a special place in the life of a reigning monarch. This was due to a young queen called Victoria. Queen Victoria, born 1819, died 1901, reigned 1837 to 1901. voice tight with anxiety, Albert knelt down beside the Queen, who lay in a dishevelled heap on the floor. "Victoria, my beloved." "Hush, hush," Queen Victoria raised her head. "I am uninjured. Look, see." She held out her hands to her husband. "The only part of me damaged is my dignity." Tears filling his eyes, Albert kissed her fingers, forehead and cheeks. "All is well," Victoria assured him, setting her bonnet straight again. And they hugged and held each other close. "It is not plain that I am trying my best to be a good queen of the people?" Victoria wondered aloud, when she recovered a little. Who would do such a thing? "Someone with an unbalanced mind, my dear," Albert consoled her. "The equerries of our household guard will tell us, for they dismounted and ran amongst the onlookers to catch him." But in the evening the Commissioner of Police came to report that the veiled assassin had escaped. "I am sorry to say there is no trace of the man carrying the pistol. We are continuing our search. However," the police commissioner went on, "I feel I should warn you. He was heard yelling he would try again on the morrow." "We won't give him the opportunity," Prince Albert said at once. "My dearest wife won't venture out tomorrow, and you must redouble your efforts to find him." "He is not known to us, as some criminals are," the police commissioner replied. "We have no idea where he lodges, or even what he was wearing." "Was there not anyone able to describe him?" Victoria asked. "5 different witnesses have given us 5 different descriptions," replied the police commissioner. "Although they all swear," he shrieked like a madman, "that he intended to lie in wait for the Queen until her carriage passed through the Mall again. Then we remain inside the palace," said Prince Albert. The police commissioner frowned. "I fear he won't give up in the days and weeks ahead." "The Queen will not appear in public until you have caught this man." "Dearest husband," Victoria protested, "I cannot stay indoors the rest of my life. My darling, I can design a special parasol lined with metal to deflect attack by shot or sword." Albert turned to the police commissioner. "It would be an excellent protection, would it not?" "Possibly," the police commissioner responded slowly. "It requires Her Majesty to be eternally vigilant, covering her upper body and head, which means no one could view the face of their Queen," Victoria finished her sentence. She paused to reflect for a moment and then said, "It will not do." "But there is the solution to the problem," Albert cried. "You would be recognised by your dress and demeanour, but shielded from deranged folk plotting to murder you." Victoria respected Albert's judgment, but was mindful that she was Queen. When it came to her duties and obligations, she did not shirk or shy away. "It will not do," she repeated. "I must be seen by my people, else I might lose their respect. Also, my own self-respect," she added, quietly, almost to herself. Intent on persuading his wife, Albert searched for the right words. The police commissioner quickly suggested, "Perhaps, if it pleases the Queen, the royal carriage could set out from Buckingham Palace tomorrow." "Yes," Prince Albert agreed. "I see your plan. A decoy." "With respect, sir, not exactly. More of a ruse to lure this man to act. I will ensure the whole area is flooded with police officers in plain clothes." "For tomorrow, a closed, empty carriage," Albert nodded. "Ah," the police commissioner hesitated. "I suspect if the carriage that every one of my staff, including I, believe the women clerks in our new police force would want to volunteer to disguise themselves as Her Majesty, yet the police commissioner's voice tailed off. Now Victoria was inexperienced in many aspects of ordinary life, but she was attentive. Watching and listening to the police commissioner, she immediately understood his concerns. "It is essential that I am visible in the carriage," she stated. "Otherwise the man won't show himself or make an attempt upon my life." "I cannot allow it," Albert cried. "Any man or woman within Buckingham Palace would gladly take your place." "Soldiers may die in battle, fighting to defend their country," Victoria replied, "but I will not deliberately send a person to be killed in my stead, and furthermore," she spoke lightly, hoping to coax a smile to her husband's grim face, "whom do you recommend would dress as Queen? Equerry Gilbert." Despite his unease, Albert did smile. Victoria was dainty and petite. Equerry Gilbert was over 6 feet tall and muscular. "It has to be me, dearest Albert." Victoria put her hand on her husband's arm. Albert shook his head. "We will discuss this privately," he told the police commissioner, "and to inform you of our decision." When the police commissioner left the room, Victoria spoke firmly to her husband. "I am an anointed queen, and I have already made my decision." When the royal barouche carriage left Buckingham Palace the next day, the hood was down, and young Queen Victoria was sitting upright with a determined smile on her face. Beside her sat Prince Albert, who had insisted on joining her. The crowds in the Mall were greater than ever. Word of yesterday's attempt on the Queen's life had spread rapidly through the city, and the royal couple's passage was greeted with amazed delight. Hats were thrown in the air, scarves waved, and loud clapping accompanied the carriage as it swung around the park. Albert's gaze darted here and there among the crowds. Victoria resolved not to think on the danger, but to look at the children and mothers and nannies holding babies up to see her. She nodded and waved and nodded and waved. "Long live the Queen!" A boy ran alongside the carriage, holding high a bunch of flowers. Albert grasped it and presented it to his wife. The onlookers roared their approval. "Hurrah! Hurrah!" 3 cheers for the brave lady. "Brave lady indeed," Albert whispered to Victoria, "and a true queen." The sounds grew louder and noisier until, "There!" Prince Albert shouted. A man holding a pistol stepped from behind a tree and raised his hand. The coachman heard Albert's warning cry, and the wheels of the carriage clattered on the cobbles while he increased their speed. The blast exploded as they flashed past, and the assassin was overcome by policemen. Then Victoria was in Albert's arms, and they were both laughing and sobbing with relief and happiness. This incident took its toll on both Victoria and Albert. They recognised that they needed rest and private time away from London, and so later in the year they set off on a trip to Scotland. The wild, rugged mountains and deep forests reminded Albert of his homeland. The royal couple were fated wherever they went, but people did not encroach upon them too much. They found plenty of peaceful spaces where they could walk and talk solely in each other's company. The tour of Scotland turned out to be a life-changing experience. Just as establishment of Balmoral Castle as a favourite private home of the royal family where they still enjoy holidays. Beyond the legend, Prince Albert did have a special parasol lined with mail armour made for Queen Victoria, but due to its weight it was rarely used. It is in the collection of the Museum of London. Queen Victoria had no real intention of sharing any of her personal writings, but was persuaded to after the death of her beloved husband. Published in London in 1868, the book Leaves from the Journal of Our Life in the Highlands, 1831 to 1861, shows how much they both loved spending summer at Balmoral in Scotland. Victoria lived during a time of huge scientific progress, political reform and social change, a time now known as the Victorian era. Her reign was 63 years long, the longest for a British monarch, until her great-great-granddaughter, Queen Elizabeth II, surpassed it. Modern times. The Stone of Scone, treasured by Kenneth, the first King of Scotland and seized by King Edward I of England in 1296, was finally given back to Scotland in 1996. In modern times, Scottish people called for greater control over Scottish affairs. In 1999, some governmental powers were passed from the United Kingdom Parliament in Westminster, London, to a devolved Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh. In 2013, a law passed in relation to royal inheritance ended the system